The top 100 agents are the best of the best, listing and selling more than any other agent in Australia.
Sold. Congratulations, sir. Well bought.
These are the practices, actions and beliefs of the most successful agents in Australian real estate. Raw, honest and completely uncut. Welcome to REB's Secrets of the Top 100 Agents.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Business Podcast. I'm Emilie Lauer, REB Deputy Editor, and today I am joined by Hermione Gardiner, the CEO and founder of Sidekick, to discuss how property managers can shift from a reactive, inconsistent approach to a growth-focused one that improves not only performances and efficiency, but also lead generation. Hermione, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Emily. Now, I don't want to ruin your horrible introduction, but you did say Hermione Gardiner.
Did I say Hermione Gardiner? Are you
Which
kidding
I am
me?
totally fine to leave in because I have so many funny stories about this that throughout my whole career, I actually had a boss put Hermione Gardiner on my contract once. Shout out to Amanda who had to call me. I had to call and say, hey, I actually have the wrong name on my contract. So you're not the first person. If you want to leave this in, totally go for it. It's a funny start.
This is, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's actually I think the corrector put Granger
Oh, it's actually on there on your
it
notes.
was Granger on it. I was like, oh no.
My name is Hermione Gardiner, but it's lovely to meet you either way. I've had so many conversations about this over the years. It is all good. I actually got Granger's one of my nicknames that people have called me in the past. So
look, thank you so much for joining us. And let's start, with the very beginning. Look, you're going to be one of the keynote speaker coming up at, the REB's inaugural Property Management Excellence Awards happening towards the end of the month. And you are that very much, coach and specialist on property management. So before we go into the nitty-gritty details on how to get better, I want to start with the beginning and let's go back a little bit into down memory lane and have your career a little bit. So how did everything start and how did you get into the PM space?
Well, I want to say it started at Hogwarts just to keep the theme going. But actually, I mean, like most people in PM, I didn't know that I wanted to be a property manager. I just sort of fell into it. So there's not really some story about how I was leaving high school and wanted to become a property manager. I just worked at a video store. I was like a Blockbuster girl. But my family was selling their family home at the time. And so I just got interested in real estate by default. And then I got a part-time job. I did my diploma and just kind of landed into it. And again, no real decided ambition or pathway that I was going to take, but just, similar story to anyone listening who's been in property management. You just take another role, you take that property management role, you move up, you become, a senior. Over the years, I did department manager roles, ran really large businesses here in Sydney, and then sidestepped out of that I've worked in coaching, consulting, training, software over the years. And now I have my own business, Sidekick, where I get to go and help others grow and start and scale their businesses. So love it.
Yeah, which is it's a good, career to look at. Like you mentioned, property manager is something you basically stumble on. What made you stay?
I don't know. No, I do. Because I like a challenge, and I actually talk about this a lot when I do property management training. There's a big sort of negative sentiment about working in property management at the moment. It can be really great if you embrace the fact that it is challenging. You might have the same two issues, but because of the different people that you're dealing with, the different tenants, the owners, the contractors, the people around you, it is actually different every day, which is actually hard for someone who is a bit of a control freak, like most property managers are, like I am, because you want to be able to control everything, but you're actually learning new ways of dealing with things every single day. So I think for me, I've probably stayed because I've never got bored. If I look back, the only roles really, that I've left, I've kind of, I've got bored in it, or you reach that limit or capacity of what you can do. But yeah, over the years, I've stayed in property management probably for that reason.
How has the job evolved over the years? How has the space evolved over the years? Because, look, my perspective is being a PM, being a property manager is and can be hard, especially because you are basically the middleman in between your landlord and your tenant. So you're getting things from everybody on each side. Has always that been the case, or has the property world for PM changed for the worse, the better? How has it evolved?
Yeah, it's great. Funny you say that. I sort of say you're lovingly like the meat in a sandwich working in property management.
Basically, yeah.
Which is not very glamorous, but I don't think that part's really changed from, like, I've always felt that way the whole time I've worked in PM. But I suppose the difference to probably when I sat in the PM seat to now, where I'm going in and out of offices each day and I, sit beside the PM team or the businesses to help them optimize how they're doing things, is really the volume of what they have to deal with today is dramatically increased because of all the different, we've got so much more email, so many more notifications, tasks and things in all different locations. Like there's no off time. You're always on and available. I think the demands and expectations from clients have increased dramatically, like partially because, everyone really expects things to be done instantly or automated in every other area of their life. And property management's still like really a bit slower to deal with, despite the fact we've got all this amazing tech and tools. And that's probably the third thing, is that we've got all these amazing tech and tools coming in and there's so much changing and evolving. But I find that it hasn't quite sped things up enough to relieve that pressure on the PM. Like, I think it's almost leading to tech overwhelm because there's so many different things that you need to know and understand and be across at any one time, that we're in this funny transition stage where we haven't quite got fully automated and we're not really manual. And so we can't quite keep up with those demands and expectations, and then we're always on and available. Like, I think we're just in a bit of a vicious cycle at the moment, and I'm quite passionate about trying to help us move to that next phase of the industry where more of our time is freed up with AI and automation, and we can meet those demands and expectations and maybe not have to be always on and available.
So you keep being in the middle, yeah? Let's definitely talk about that. Like, how do you actually go from these challenges at the moment where, well, there's not enough time, technology is maybe moving too fast for you to keep up with, and you're basically having more pressure in your day-to-day job, and we know that pressure and stress is definitely not helping property managers.
No. Yeah. How do we fix that?
Yeah. How do you fix it?
How long are we doing this podcast for? Look, I think I always say in any of my coaching and training, I always say, like, change starts with awareness. And so, I don't know, for me, it's like awareness is just admitting or acknowledging where we're at. And it's not easy right now. But also I think we've got a choice, right? We can be, I suppose, the victim in it and go, oh, it's hard, everything's happening to us, and like it's just, it's a negative space. Or we can shift into, okay, well, it's hard and it's challenging, but like I want to make it different. Like I want to find better and faster and smarter ways of doing things. And the businesses that we're working with that are moving forwards and moving past a lot of those challenges and the burnout and the staff turnover and the, that sort of hamster wheel of growth that they get stuck on, like they're continually looking at new ways. It's not just, oh, put this piece of tech in and, oh, well, that's the change. It's like we've got to move into this growth mindset and this pathway of like continual evolution, like just to probably even like keep up. And that's not, really staying ahead of the game and innovating. So it's really, I believe, a choice that we've got to make to not stay as we were and not be the victim and actually take the power and grow by choice, if that makes sense. Yeah, well,
got to take actions, basically. And that's something you've been talking to is like, like that reactivity to something rather than taking those proactive steps to be ahead of what's happening for property managers. So, why do most, property management, agencies or property manager fall into that reactive trap rather than, being proactive? And how is this impacting their business?
I think that, any kind of reactiveness I find comes from a lack of time and resource, really. Like in most businesses and most of the business owners that I work with, if they're stuck in reactive mode, it's because they have to just respond and react, and they're kind of juggling the balls and trying to keep up with, I suppose, what is in front of them, versus really putting that aside and being able to look at things intentionally and go, okay, how do we want things to be? Where do we want to go? Like being very intentional about it. But often for them to be able to think like that, the first thing we need to do before growth and growth plans and marketing, all that, lovely stuff to move them forwards, is actually, okay, how do we free up your time, and B, what resources do we need to do to be able to do that, right? Like, is it that we need more team? Is it that we need more onshore, offshore team? Is it that we need more tech and resources? Do we need to look at our systems and processes and really refine them and optimize them and digitalize them so it's actually scalable, not just a lot of the business owners I work with, God love them, like all the processes are in their head, and then the same happens with their PMs, and it's not scalable to bring a new team member in or even let go of those things because it's not documented. So that there's lots of different elements that are needed to then be able to go, cool, now I've got headspace, capacity to be able to go, all right, well, how do I now intentionally grow and move my business forward? Because reactiveness, as I said, you get stuck on that hamster wheel, and then you can kind of feel like, oh, what's the point of all of this? Like, we're just spinning the wheels. But it is kind of possible to get off that wheel with those things and actually start rolling forwards.
Yeah, no, definitely. And this is something you've been doing with Sidekick for a while now, yeah? What are some of the most common mistakes you've seen, across property manager businesses that actually either slow down their growth potential or just stop them in their track?
Well, probably what we just spoke about, in just operating reactively for a very long time, not taking any time to work on the business, just spending all the time in the business. But outside of that, probably, it's really looking at the business that you have and how you can, increase your retention of clients, right? Like, are we, losing clients out the back door, which means any growth you're bringing in is just pointless. Well, not pointless, but it just replaces what we're losing. So it's like, are we plugging any of those holes? Are we looking at opportunities from within our existing clients to be able to grow and leverage off that, instead of trying to, go and wave a sign on the street saying, hey, does anyone want to use our business? There's probably so much opportunities that are available if you're able to harness that existing client base. But also, to be able to do that, you have to make sure that you've got happy, satisfied clients, right? So it's, if you can get those things right, and then it's potentially, I think I don't think it's how do I phrase this? Because you said mistake. I think it's probably not a mistake. It's just a lack of intention, again, around the growth plans, right? So growth, I find the biggest mistake, or I don't call it a mistake, a blockage or a limitation or a constraint, is that most property management businesses treat growth reactively, right? So there's not a clear process, there's not a clear plan, there's not a system, there's not anything that's rinsable and repeatable, other maybe than, getting on phones and making calls each week, right? So it's so interesting. A lot of the businesses where I go in to look at their, their growth strategy or their optimization strategy around how they grow, it's like they've got all these systems and processes and workflows for their PM, right? For arrears, for maintenance, for renewals, for onboarding new tenants, all of those kind of things. But if I said, okay, well, where's your checklists and workflows for lead generation and marketing and, onboarding and your sales process? Like, so few businesses have that systemized and defined. It's more reactive. It's like, oh crap, we need to grow. Where are we going to get some leads? Oh, we've got to go make some calls. It's not that we've got a clear marketing system in the background that's actually just dropping leads and warm clients into our world on a regular basis. So that's something I'm very passionate about at the moment. And ironically, we didn't plan to talk about this particularly, but that's what we'll be talking about in the PMX talk that I'll be talking around in my lead generation playbook, is around how you set up growth as a system in your business so that it is repeatable and sustainable, and it's not then based on how you feel and reaction on the day.
Well, let's give a little bit of a teaser, yeah? Shall we? Let's talk about that lead generation. And it seems that, property management is cutthroat. Yeah. Like if the clients are unhappy, they take their business somewhere else. So you got to keep on, generating those type of leads. And you just mentioned that's an area where basically all businesses could improve.
Yeah.
Just run us through a little bit, how should we do it?
Well, I don't want to give away everything.
Not everything.
Because we want people to come to the conference.
Just a little teaser.
As I said, it's like whatever. There's a lot of things that businesses do that already work, but they just haven't systemized it. So often what I'll do in, a new client onboarding session, if they tell me that they want to grow, like I look at, okay, well, let's look at the growth results that we've had to date and what sources they've been coming from, and really looking at, okay, well, what's already working in the business. And usually there's a couple of top sources that are already working for them. For some businesses, it might be sales referrals, current clients, trade partners, referral partners, could be social media, like whatever it is. There's usually some typical sources that are already delivering, but they're again delivering reactively, right? So then ideally what you want to do is, okay, well, how could we systemize and leverage off that to be able to get more results out of it, right? And I'll talk about this in the PMX session, but it's like in the lead generation playbook session, we talk about the fact that all marketing and all efforts for lead gen need to be thought about like a funnel, right? And each of those lead sources is like a little tap that's dropping into the top of the funnel, right? And some of them are dripping and have the capacity to be turned on a lot higher if we're able to document them, systemize them, and make them repeatable and working almost while you're sleeping. So that's probably, a bit of a high-level synopsis of what we'll talk about.
Look, how realistically, because, it seems that you do have to put those processes into place for then later down the road, bringing more clients, more, and a scalable business and having the benefits. Realistically speaking, how long does it really takes you to do that? Because we know that PMs are already time poor. How long does it take you, and how much effort do you need to put in to go from that reactive type of business to that proactive ones?
Yeah, I mean, it's like how long's a piece of string, really? As you say, it's like how much time does someone have to spend on it? I've got businesses that I'm working with at the moment where it's taking months and months to get these things in place because you've got a solo business owner or maybe someone with a small team, and they've got, a really limited amount of time each week that they can work on the business. And in doing that, they go, okay, well, like, let's work on our content, or let's work on our database management or our email campaigns and the things that, then go into generating leads and nurturing those leads. They can work on that a little bit at a time, right? Whereas, in another business where literally on one of my coaching calls today in our mastermind was literally talking to someone because they've hired the team now and they've got lots of hours in their week. So they're steaming through their project list right now. Like they've built out email campaigns, they're getting regular content out. They've, now built out all of these workflows for their new client onboarding, all of these type of things so that it's now becoming systemized. And the view with that is that then they could actually go and hire then a BDM next year and kind of plug them into the ecosystem. And if you have the capacity, then that can happen a lot faster. So if it's either the business owner or a leader or a BDM has that time, then I would really recommend, again, it's not just, okay, we need to make some lead gen this week. It's get them to be turning that into a system for your business.
Definitely. I mean, look, it's always a little bit tricky, especially when you don't know how much time people have on their end, and if they've got families, and it's always a bit tricky. But look, you've mentioned emails, chains, content, so it's a lot of marketing also as well. Is there a lack of marketing from property management businesses that also needs to be plugged in and boosted a little bit in terms of not only lead generation, but image maybe of the brand?
Yeah, I think so. I think the interesting thing about most PMs and really noticing a trend right now where PMs are going out on their own and starting their own businesses, and they've been amazing PMs, but they aren't actually great at marketing and selling themselves. And I mean, that's typically hasn't been our role as property managers. Where if I bumped into a typical property manager, I don't know, at a networking event, I said, what do you do? They'd probably just say, oh, I'm just a property manager, right? It's a very like that brand perception isn't, loud and proud, maybe like some other areas of our industry. Love you salespeople. You have no problems with spruiking your own worth, which is awesome. There's a bit we need to learn and take from that. But I think then, there's a lot of work we typically do with our clients around, okay, well, it's setting up your brand and your image and your marketing, and then setting up consistent marketing that's going to go out that speaks to exactly your ideal client, that has them kind of wanting to be attracted to work with you, and that happening consistently so that you're not having to, hustle the streets to work so hard to get leads. So it's definitely something that's missing a lot in our industry, and even in some of the bigger businesses that, I go into, even some who have marketing departments. It's heavy on marketing either the business or the sales or the listings, but there's not a huge push on, okay, well, how do we market a property management business, which is not the same as sales marketing, because sales marketing is very local area targeted, but doesn't really work the same with investors because they're not all in your local target area, or not always. Sometimes they are, depending on where you are. But so there needs to be a slightly different marketing strategy that comes into play when you think about that marketing funnel, all the different lead sources that you're going to work, and then how you then nurture those people that come into your world. Because the other difference between PM and sales marketing is, like, sometimes these people aren't ready to go straight away, right? Typically you get someone who wants an appraisal in sales. It's like, hey, they're thinking about selling their home, right? But someone who's interested in your PM services, they've got their property for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So I try and talk to my clients around, like, even if these leads aren't ready to go, we can't just let them go nowhere, because these people are your future clients, right? In 6, 12, 24 months. And I can guarantee anyone who's listening has had someone they've kept in touch with for a long time. And after 2 years, they finally come on. So it's like, even the work we're doing in the lead gen, we need to think long game.
Yeah.
And I always joke with my clients. I said, do you still want to have your business in 5 years, 10 years? And they're like, yeah. Okay, well, we need to be thinking long term and build the strategy for the future of the business, not just for now.
Yeah, and look, definitely, I agree with you. Like, I think there is definitely that long game, because selling a property is more in the instant, while, managing a property. Look, I feel like investors, because we also do the Smart Property Investment Show, investors are picky with their property manager. Yeah. So,
they're going to get to know you over time. Sometimes they're not ready. They want to, I always say, like, we can't just go and be like, hey, do you want an appraisal? Can we come in your home? These people, like, they want to drink first. They want to get to know you. Like, it's like
and that building relationship needs to be ongoing, because I feel like it's very easy to lose a client. I think it's easier to lose a client than to gain one. So yeah, it's very interesting.
But also that, right? Like, they're not always gone forever. Like, that's a big gap I often see in businesses, is there's no offboarding process for lost clients, right? So someone who decides to move back into their property, right, they might have been happy with you for 5, 10 years. They might have paid you $20,000 in fees over that period of time. And we're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, cool. Here's your keys. Talk to you soon. And there's no thank you gift. There's no, checklist where maybe a director's giving them a call and saying thanks to your business. They're not being noted even in the sales CRM that they were the owner of that property. Like, it blows my mind, right? Because those people are not only potentially going to buy again, maybe buy another investment property, but they also know all of the other people in your area that might also own investment property. So I think there's also that work to be done, whether someone's moving back in or even going to another agent or wants to self-manage, right? Like, there's ways to then keep in touch with them so that they can become future clients, so they can refer future clients to you.
I think that's very interesting, because I had never thought about the offboarding aspect of, property management. But I think that's definitely, you've got your finger on something there. I think that's definitely needed, because it also helps you grow.
Yeah.
I think, like any business, whether it is, within the, the real estate industry or any other industry, taking feedback on board is what makes you better.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think you're definitely on something. Hermione, you said something a little bit earlier on, and that's, how, PMs are not very good at, promoting themselves and be prouder of what they're doing. How we shift that perspective?
I think that's a personal journey we all have to go on, but I think it's really shifting away from, I'm just a property manager, to really looking at, like, what you're doing. Like, when I kind of really probably shifted my mindset, it was when I really realized, is when I learned about investment. And I learned about investment property because when I really learned about that stuff, I was a property manager who was like, oh, I'm just a property manager. I'm just, putting the repairs through, and probably had a perception that, well, aren't all investors just rich people and shouldn't they just be able to afford repairs? Why are they getting so upset about spending money on a repair, right? But then I went down a pathway of learning about, investment property and buying an investment property, and really then understanding, oh, okay, these people are doing this for a reason, right? They're not just putting a property on the market to rent for fun. Like, it's not just for funsies, it's for a purpose, right? It's to create future wealth and freedom. And like, there's actually a purpose. If we can do a good job at that, we're not only helping them with that, but we can potentially be helping, tenants with housing and stuff, right? The role we play is actually quite important. And so I think when you can start to zoom back and really look at what you're doing on the big picture, because like we get stuck in the day-to-day of like arrears and routines and all of that stuff, which can feel monotonous and not as important. But when you zoom out, it's actually quite important what we're helping people with. And I think for me on my career, that really, that made me want to be a much better property manager and made me want to get my clients better outcomes and really help them not just process their repairs, but help them make more money on their investment property and make sure there was less vacancy, because I could see how much that was costing them. And I think that shift in mindset then, as I got better at that, allowed me to be more confident in being able to go out to, say, a client and say, hey, I don't just help you with your repairs and maintenance. Like, I'm helping you with your investment property and having bigger conversations.
So it's, again, very interesting. And learning about investment there is what was the key things for you. So do you think there's a lack of education for younger PM on that specific, knowledge of investment property? And do you think there's a lack of knowledge, like more globally?
Oh, 100%. We don't get, it's not part of any of the courses of registration and licensing. It doesn't teach you really about understanding it and understanding, the reality for a mum and dad investor and how they've got their property geared, and how, a lot of them aren't just, rich monopoly people. Like, they're people like you and I who are just trying to make it work. And maybe that's our one, or maybe we've got 2 investment properties, but we're probably not sitting there super cash flush with that. We're probably, putting money into that each month to make it work, again, for that higher purpose. And yeah, it's interesting how, there's a whole generation, and I was one of them actually. So it's not generational, just I didn't know and understand. It's worrying in a way, and there's maybe a whole nother conversation, that there's people with no qualifications or understanding about investment property, not advising, but kind of advising people on these huge assets and huge, future decisions for their future, with so little education around it. So I definitely think that it's a gap that, it should be in somewhere in us getting registered and licensed, but for any, if you're a PM listening, like, that's a really valuable piece that you can help. And I believe the future of property management, as more tech and AI comes in, like, we're going to need to be some level of advisor to these people to have, to make sure that they still want to pay us our fee, that we're still seen as an advisor and not just an administrator on these portfolios.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can... very, very interesting. Hermione, do you want to give us a bit more of a teaser on, your PMX keynote? So just as a little reminder, you will be speaking at the Property Management Excellence Award. That's REB's first PMX award in November 2025. So that's 27th of November. Where you'll be speaking way much longer than today. But give us a little bit of a teaser of what you'll be speaking about.
Yeah, beautiful. So my session's called the Lead Generation Playbook. And my passion is probably to really summarize what we're speaking about today and help people walk away with, okay, well, how do I do that, right? Because we've spoken about probably what you need to be thinking about, but I want to give people, okay, well, if you want to have a system or a, process in place for growth, what does that look like? So I'm going to give people like the playbook of what the work I do with my clients that I work with both in person and online, as to what we do with them to set up these systems, and I'm going to give it to them in a quick playbook format across their sessions.
So get the actionable steps.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of how, and there was even going to be a little free resource that they'll get as well to take back and audit their own business. So,
well, if you are interested, definitely join us at the Property Management Excellence Award on the 27th of November. Hermione, that was a pleasure having you here on the REB Pods. Let's go back to Hogwarts.
That was a great start to a podcast, by the way. No, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm really excited to come and do the session on the 27th and looking forward to meeting everyone there. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining us. And that's all we have time for today's REB Podcast episode. We will be back next week with another one. In the meantime, join us on all our social media platforms. Join us at the PMX event. And bye for now.